So, thank you for joining us again today. This is Emily, also known as Felix Long, author of Sophrosine.
Yes.
And the anthology creator for the
Anthology Aronson.
Yes. I knew it was a Viking Nordic sort of name,
Yes.
so that's so exciting. Thank you so much and also the 2021 Logan laureate.
Yay.
Hence this beautiful tiara. Don't worry, if you're a gentleman and you don't want a tiara, you'll probably get something like a top hat. But we'll organise the right thing for you, so you don't have to stress.
So I'm the first Logan laureate.
She is.
And it's lonely people, come and help me out. Come and enter. The President's Challenge, sponsored by the Logan Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much. And our theme is a short story, poem, narrative, script, whatever you like. Maximum of 5,000 words on the theme of growth and resilience. The rest, darling, is up to you. Your deadline is the 16th of August, so get cracking. And entries, please, to arts@loganchamber.com.au. Teamwork.
We got there.
We got there.
Oh, it's so good to have you here, Emily.
Oh, it's so great to be on. I'm really getting excited, pumped for this festival.
Now, you actually had 2 entries last year.
I did.
I had to pick between the 2 of them. And I think your poem came in first and then your short story came in second. And both of them were absolutely beautiful. And then at the Business Distinction Awards, you gave us another one on the night.
I got the jitters. I suddenly couldn't perform my poem. So I did Calvin Coolidge's mental blank. Calvin Coolidge's Persistence.
Oh, beautiful.
Calvin Coolidge. This is a lost era when American presidents used to write poetry.
I feel like we need that. We need more
artists in positions of power.
Yes, 100%. We need to know what the soul of the person is, and you only learn that through the art they make.
That is a very insightful comment, Rhiannon. Very insightful indeed.
I always say, you know the soul of someone, you know the soul of a culture through their artwork, you know the heart of a culture through their food.
Oh, even better.
So tell me a bit about how this year in particular, because I'm sure there's plenty of other stories, but how have you adopted the traits of growth and resilience in 2022?
That is a fantastic question. Well, I have achieved a life ambition. I have a permanent job. As a writer.
So rare these days.
It is just...
everyone's on casual.
I know. After 15 years, 20 I think almost, as an IT consultant and a STEM pioneer, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. When I joined the workforce way back in the 90s, I was the only girl. It was kind of lonely. It really was. But now 30% of our STEM workforce are women. And I'm so pleased to have seen that progress through the periods of my life. Growth and resilience. So the growth of women in IT is a truly wonderful and joyous thing. And IT, engineering, STEM, technology, and maths, these are all sources for art. Now, Sophrosine is an interesting example of this. Sophrosine is the ancient Greek version of nirvana. It is the ideal state of mind, and you can only achieve it through a deep understanding of one's personal nature and self-sacrifice. So Sophrosine is an occult murder mystery whodunit. And I had such fun putting it together. I put it together as an app, just for a giggle, because I got funding from the Regional Arts Development Fund. Hello, Chelsea, if you're watching. Darling.
Oh my gosh, the Regional Arts Development Fund. I got it to finish the last 4 of the Wolflock Cases books.
Yes.
It is phenomenal.
Oh.
The people that have received it, if you can max it out, very much do. But if you really want it, go to Chelsea at the Logan Art Gallery, because she is the absolute champion for it. And I highly recommend speaking to her. And it changes your life, honestly. It gets you to think differently. It gets you to understand the process of applying for grants properly. And it gets you to start to think, okay, so I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing this not because I just want a form of self-expression, but because I want to share something with the community at large, because I want to make an impact. And these are the exact steps I'm taking to do that.
Yes, and when you accept the king's sovereign, you must serve. You have accepted a bucket of money, public money, and you are
up to $8,000.
Up to $8,000. And this is another thing that Logan has over Brisbane. Yes, I said it.
Oh, shh.
When everybody was cutting their arts funding, including Brisbane City Council, Logan was promoting the arts, growth and resilience. The resilience of our artists here in Logan has, yes, we're going to claim some credit here. When we were all locked down and miserable, who did we turn to? Artists. We turned to our visual artists, our musical artists, our authors. These are the people who got us through our darkest days. And to anyone out there who is a content producer of any description, don't give up. Because success comes in small increments, and it also comes in ways that you never expected it would. To circle back, the skills I acquired in doing Software Cine as an app led me to the full-time job I currently have. So the investment that Logan City Council places into its artists has a direct benefit to the artist and to the economy at large. It took me from perilous contracting work to permanent employment, and for which I am so grateful. And I still write. I get up at 5 a.m, I write till 7, and then I go and do my day job. Yes, it's a bit tough.
I'm not a morning person, but I could do it in reverse.
Yeah, oh yeah. You know, when I'm really cooking, I bookend it. I put an hour in before going to bed, and then I use the dream state. And then I wake up and bang, straight into it.
Yeah.
Not even a cup of tea. Just get it going.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned there's more women in STEM these days. So 30% more. That number rises every year, which is phenomenal. We definitely want to see a 50-50 because it's so important to have balance in something that impacts the rest of the world. But what made me think of it was when you said maths, I don't know if this is true, and I hope to the high heavens that it is, but the Vikings, or the Danes, used to give mathematical things, household accounting and finances, to women because it was seen as witchcraft. And it's like, no, that is women's business. That is like, it makes sense when you say it, but the way your brain does it is clearly black magic.
Well, have you ever seen double entry bookkeeping? That is black magic, seriously. I consider the same about knitting.
Knitting is also a form of witchcraft. I am 100%.
A pair of sticks and a piece of wool equals jumper.
Yes.
I don't get it. Seriously.
Or booties. When they start doing curves, my friend has just started to get into knitting and crochet. She's very specific. Oh, I'm not into knitting. I'm into crocheting. I'm like,
apparently there's a distinction. No,
okay, all right, sure. It looks amazing. You've made a Pokemon.
Oh, wow. Does she take orders?
Oh, you know what her favorite? Her new favorite thing is this cute little basket design. So she wanted to make cauldrons and things like that with it. So it was very sweet. Cool. But seeing the stories of women come out in these areas is so important because representation matters.
Oh, it does.
Seeing women act in a particular way perpetuates that throughout the rest of society. So when you act well, and this is not just women, but this is for anyone, when you act well, when you take pride in your community, in your appearance, in the work that you do, and in the relationships you hold, the people around you start to emulate that as well. And that's one thing that we strive for here in Logan as well. We're gritty.
Damn straight.
We are the salt of the earth here. We are the ones
We're
that
New Jersey to Brisbane to New York.
Yeah.
We're Jersey.
No one ever called us boring. That was the
campaign
campaign they put through Logan about 6 or 8 months ago. But because of that, when we act in a certain way, our power has such a more influential presence in between Gold Coast and Brisbane. When you see someone from Logan in a space, so whenever we go to writing groups or networking groups, the person from Logan is the one that everyone is magnetized to because they've actually got a genuine personality. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, but it's true.
So I just wanted to touch back briefly what I was trying to get at in a very roundabout way with Sophrosyne. Sophrosyne describes the 9 muses. These are the Greek goddesses of art and science. The ancient Greeks had no differentiation between the two. They considered astronomy as equally important as epic poetry. These 9 goddesses... Oh, do I tell you? In Sophrosyne, these 9 goddesses are summoned to Earth. And what do they find? When they look around them at the paucity of reality TV and production line pop, how do they react? Sophrosyne.
I love it. You just made me think as well about how the Greeks, there was no differentiation between the importance of art and science.
No. And these people estimated the circumference of the Earth.
Accurately.
With a couple of sticks.
And shadows.
And shadows.
The Greeks also had a really interesting tax system because they would look at the wealthiest people, more common, and they would say, oh, well, if you're a good person, like if you're a good citizen, then you'll have a really boring house and your name will be on all of these public works instead. So these roads will be named after you. This bathhouse will be named after you. All of these public festivals will be named after you or done in your honour because you paid for them.
Because this is the measure of your worth.
Yes. So the more the people heard your name, the more loved you were and the better you were seen in society rather than hoarding your wealth for yourself.
Like Smaug.
Yeah. So don't be that kind of dragon.
Don't be that guy.
No, don't be Smaug.
Don't be Smaug.
But yeah, it's so interesting, and it makes me think that with that, the Greeks were very well known for being patrons of the arts, and they would patronize, in the best sense, different artists that they liked. They would pay the lifestyles for the actors, musicians, poets, and storytellers, the dancers, all of these people that were artists. They would employ them specifically for what they were doing, as well as giving them some element of free reign on what the artist wanted to do. And I really wish they'd bring that back. There's enough billionaires to pay for us all, right?
Yes. Every billionaire should be obliged to keep a stable of artists.
A stable of artists.
Just have these battles off against each other. It's Elon Musk versus George Soros.
Well, that was the other thing.
Cool.
If 2 really wealthy Grecians would have plays going at the same time, whoever rocked up at the better play or whoever had better reviews at the end of their play was seen as more successful.
Yes.
And the Greeks also had the idea of the daemon. So you were the channel for your art. You were not the artist. Your daemon, which was this invisible inspiration that sat on you and demanded that you made art, they were responsible for whether or not your art was good or not.
Right.
So if you made really crap art, if you wrote a really trashy story, that's your daemon's fault.
It's your personal critic.
But it also means that if you did really good art, that is also not fully yours. You have to release the ego from it.
Well, that is a very good point. Where does art come from? Where does inspiration come from? Does it come from within? Or do we take the Terry Pratchett approach? Terry Pratchett would talk about inspiration particles, quarks, effectively. They go zipping around in the universe and they've just got to hit you right there. And bang, idea.
Yep.
That's a wonderful idea. It
I like
really
that.
is.
I like
Because
that.
sometimes when you do have an epiphany like that, it's like, that's amazing.
And sometimes here needs to be cleared out a little bit by making bad art.
Yes, that is true. Oh, so did you know that the Greeks actually invented the first computer? Yes, really. This was made from knots. Not kidding, haha. This was an automated theatre which had cutouts that were their motions, it's like string puppets, but these strings were all knotted in certain ways such that as they unwound, movements in the diorama would go off in sequence. So knitting was one of the first forms of computing.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
really.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And the term computer used to be given to the women who would do the witchcraft mathematics
Ada
in
Lovelace.
space. Yes, in space stations.
Space stations?
Wasn't it? Not space station. It was spaceship places. They were trying to do big math.
The computers.
Yes, yeah.
Like hidden
So
figures.
the term computer.
Really, really cool.
Yeah, the term computer was first given to the women doing the maths. So the first computer was a woman.
Yeah, keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that we actually sent craft into orbit using slide rules, trigonometry, and brains. No computers. None at all. It was a triumph of engineering. There was more computing power in your average desk pocket calculator. You remember those? Than there was on the entirety of the Apollo spacecraft.
That's
All of them.
incredible.
Yeah, very true.
That's incredible. I find that this is a common thing these days with different stories, is that the climax feels so egregiously large, and it attempts to be Mount Everest 20 times over, when really it's the circumstances around it that make it grand or not. So the climax for a lot of stories these days is world ending or universe ending. It's super common. It's like there's a lot of things that are just too big, and it's like, oh, the average person will never be able to relate to this. Whereas I find that when you take, I'm going to bring it up again. Everyone who's watched the interviews knows that in every interview I have to bring up Studio Ghibli.
They have a festival on at the moment.
Oh, stop.
The Elizabeth Theatre in the centre of the city.
Oh, stop. All right, I'll be there. I'm going to go there. I feel like my Saturday just cleared up. So when in Studio Ghibli, so that just completely dates this talk, by the way. I have to release it today. So when you have when you have a story, the catastrophe or the climax or the pinnacle pressure point is actually all relative to the story. You don't have to have something monolithic or megalomatic to make it really dramatic.
Yeah.
I'm rhyming here.
What about being a parent who's trying to prevent their daughter from being really disappointed on her birthday?
Oh.
What's wrong with that as the pressure point in a story?
Yeah.
Relatable.
I was just thinking about how you don't need all the whiz-bang calculators to launch a spaceship.
No, you don't.
And so another thing is a lot of authors get bogged down in, but I need this software. But I need this extra piece. You don't.
Shakespeare used a sharpened feather and a pot of ink and a handful of sand.
Yeah.
Now, come on, people, we're just making excuses here.
And what was the ink made out of? I'm sure it was like ash and fat, right?
Something like
Something like that. If it was being very fancy, it would have been squid ink, but that's watered down with lots of other things.
Why does squid need ink so far down under the ocean where there is no light? Ooh. Now, I read a fantastic book by China Miéville called The Kraken. And that was the central question. Oftentimes when you're reading a book, as an author sometimes, it takes away a bit of the charm of reading because you can see how a story is constructed. Oh, look, it's a herring. Oh, look, it's a plot exposition. Oh, look, it's a minor character. It's the comic relief character. How are you doing?
Now they're about to die.
Yeah. I tenor on this guy now, snuffing in the next couple of pages.
I have that issue. I'll look at someone and I'll be like, I'm attracted to you. You're the bad guy.
Ooh, there you go, conventions. But oftentimes when you're reading a book, you can see the quark, the inspiration particle for that entire story. China Miéville, I can never pronounce his surname, his book, The Kraken, which is like an epic urban fantasy. I love urban fantasy. It's what I'm writing right at the moment. The central idea was, why do squid need ink way down in the blackness of the ocean? It makes sense, when they're a bit further up and they're trying to escape pursuit. But these massive, massive krakens down in the bottom of the ocean, what do they need ink for? And he just builds this amazing mythos on that question.
My first thought is they need the ink because it doesn't mask sight, but it masks scent.
Yeah.
And so they're getting away with from something with big nostrils.
Stop applying logic to magic, Rhiannon.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. I've had to justify a fantasy world.
Honestly, STEM produces the best ideas for fantasy, for thrillers, for mysteries, for whatever genre it is that you want to write. Honestly, go and get yourself some of the popular scientific magazines. What is coming through in the press today? Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the grant I didn't get. Doesn't matter. I had this amazing idea. My current book that I'm working on is a trilogy. It started as a book. It's gone to a trilogy. And it's called Habnab.
It's a box set of 10.
Habnab. Habnab is an ancient English word meaning a second chance at luck. So when you were sitting at dice and you had your 2 dice and you threw them down and it was going to land snake eyes, you could see it rolling around just on the final pivot point. You would go, Habnab! And it would go from 1 to a 6. It was like a little common everyday piece of magic. It was a little charm, a little cantrip, a little bit of luck.
It sounds like a curse word.
It does a bit, doesn't it? It really does have that. Really...
It's a curse word in desperation.
Yes. Habnab! Oh no, I used my left hand.
Oh wait, I've got to do it with the right this time.
Yeah. So for each of these stories, I had the inspiration was a scientific question that I answered in a fantasy setting. For Habnab, it was, is it possible that our ancestral memories of trolls are actually Neanderthals?
Ooh.
I became obsessed with the idea that the fossil record and the oral record lay side by side because Neanderthals lived side by side with humans until relatively recently in terms of human history. And our most ancient tales, Gilgamesh, for example, are 10,000 years old. That's mammoth hunters.
Yep.
So some of these ideas that you can bring out and just, how did this happen? Why is it like that? These can be the genesis of an entire book if you just let them ferment in your mind and read a lot.
Yes.
Anyone who wants to write must be a reader first.
You need an innate sense of curiosity.
You do.
Yeah. It makes me think the start of Pew and Teli was I was really disillusioned with all of the bad historical choices. What I deemed as a 17-year-old girl in high school were bad historical choices in humanities history. And so I went about finding the key points in history where things dramatically changed, and I changed them. And then I put them in my own world. So what would happen if humanity valued compassion and harmony with the environment over any form of greed? What if that was seen as something so heinous that people would then actively avoid it? Or people that were potentially very greedy would be shunned? So that was one of the first things that it started on, and then I looked at people. I came up with the 5 sins, which were apathy, greed, hatred, obsession, and arrogance.
Ooh, I like
Yes. And so the world is based on what if those aspects that were so glorified in our earthly human existence throughout history, what if they were reversed?
Demonized.
Exactly.
Considered to be evil.
Yes. And then, of course, you have the assistance of dragons cleaning everything up. So,
The great moral force that they are.
you know what? You need a good dragon. I feel like everyone has this.
That is a Tolkien quote. A
Yeah.
story isn't worth telling unless there's a dragon in it.
Yeah, in some form, even if it's just a tattoo.
Ooh, that's true.
If you're going super contemporary, there's got to be at least a dragon tattoo in there somewhere.
Fair enough.
So what are you working on at the moment? You said that you wake up every morning and you write from 5 till 7 like a
right.
crazy morning bird.
Yes, I know.
Oh, give me a night owl. I will stay up till 2 in the evening writing obsessively, but you try and get me to wake up early and it feels like I'm just going to roll my face on the keyboard. So please tell me, what are you writing at the moment?
Right, I am finishing my trilogy. The second book is called Slippery Identity.
Ooh.
And Slippery Identity also was formed of a single idea. And this single idea, there's a lot to cover here. Okay. DNA is it's an alphabet made of 4 letters. G, T, A, and A, T, G, C, at the Gold Coast. These 4 letters form the genome that is you as a person. So let's imagine base pairs of AA, AT, GC, etc., etc., etc. 715,000 of them inside every cell in your body. Think about that for a moment. You are just packed full of information that nobody can read. Now, I want you to think about an empty bookshelf. This empty bookshelf, now I want you to think of 23 books. Now, these books have all got spines that are different widths. And I want you to visualise putting those on the bookshelf. Those came from your mother. Now I want you to think of another 23 books, which have all got spines of differing lengths, and put them on the shelf.
That's going to frustrate me.
Those came from your father.
They're all these books.
Yeah. They're different widths.
Different widths, different heights. Ah!
So if you look at the numbers that correspond to the width of the spines across the books, those 46 values, that is a unique thumbprint that equals you. That is your genetic signature, as opposed to your genome, which is the contents of the book, 715,000 base pairs of characters.
That's
that is
amazing.
The full blueprint that I could clone you with.
It's like horoscopes. It's genetic horoscopes.
So when I looked into this genetic information. There's 46 values that uniquely identify a person. It's your own personal Powerball. You couldn't possibly guess it. If I gave you a pen and a piece of paper and say, right, off you go, random combinations, you'll never guess your own. But maybe you could. So when I first saw what this information looked like, it was here in Logan with Easy DNA. And I was shown a pair of DNA profiles from 2 gentlemen who believed that they shared a father. Now, just as a layman's eye, scanning across, I could see match, 75% match. These 2 men are definitely related on the paternal line. And then when I looked at these lengths that represent how much of a certain chromosome you inherited from your mother or your father, what does that mean? And it occurred to me, I had this visual moment. I said, oh my goodness, it's panpipes. Each length equating to a note. And then I went one better and I made wind chimes. Honest to goodness, I am actually creating wind chimes which have musical notes determined by your genetic profile.
That is amazing.
Come talk to me at the Logan Writers Festival.
So you'll be able to see Emily on the 9th and 10th of September. This is only like 3 weeks away.
Get your stock in.
Stop it. So the 9th and 10th of September at the Logan Writers Festival, which will be held at the Logan Artists Association. You can talk to her about all things sci-fi, all things historic, and you will be having an amazing time. So what day was your talk on again? I've forgotten. That's all right. Emily's forgotten too. You'll have to look at the program and you will be able to see when Emily has her talk on.
And I'll be talking about budgeting. As a self-publishing author, things cost money, but you can band together and form small literary militia such that you can bring your costs down and you can work with people who have skills that you don't and vice versa.
It's amazing. We might have one of these in Logan if you come down and talk to people, my little writing introverts.
That's exactly right. Little literary hobbits that we are, we need to come out of our holes and talk to each other occasionally and, eat food.
You know what? Hot pot is my favourite author dish.
Definitely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Emily. This has been lovely. And make sure you get your entry in for the Logan Laureate President's Competition, because you can be the Logan Laureate for 2022. This means you also will receive the prize of not only this beautiful crown, but also the $800 premium novel factory package. It is an amazing software, and it helped me write 10 books in 5 years. And it's helping me to write plenty more. So please come along to the festival. We'd love to have you there, and you may very well be crowned the next Logan Laureate if you get your competition entry in. So check out the website for the details. Thank you so much for coming, Emily. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. We're fist bumping, we're clapping. Scissors, paper, rock.